Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to my 2025 challenge where I'm trying to photograph 250 species of birds in Massachusetts this year. So I'm going to do something a little different today. I'm actually going out on a whale watch to look for seabirds. So I'm kind of excited about that. There is the opportunity to add some pelagic type birds that don't really come onto the land and that you would otherwise not have a chance to see if you only stayed on land. So we'll see what we're able to find. I have been on this particular whale watch, which leaves out of Gloucester, Massachusetts, a few times in the past. And I've had mixed results. There was one time I went and I saw, I think, 3 different species of shearwaters close to the boat. So that was fantastic, and that's what I'll be hoping for today. I've also been on whale watches where we didn't see anything. One thing that's going to help today is that it's actually an organized tour for the Brookline Bird Club. So while we'll be looking for whales primarily, I think there is going to be a little bit more effort today to look for seabirds, which is going to be helpful. So should be a fun day, and we see some whales. That's good too. I'll show those, but hopefully we'll find some new seabirds for the list today. Let's see how we do. So I arrived early in the morning at the Seven Seas Whale Watch located on the harbor right in downtown Gloucester, Massachusetts. And after filming the intro that you just saw, I got a chance to chat with some other birders while we waited to board the boat. This is the Seven Seas Whale Watch boat, the Privateer 4. As I mentioned, I've been out on this boat a number of times over the years, and I've always had an enjoyable time, including on some occasions stunning close-up looks at humpback whales. The boat has an enclosed main deck with bench seating and tables and a completely open upper deck. You can also stand anywhere along the rail of the main deck. The boat also has 2 single-occupant bathrooms and a simple snack bar. This great blackback gull was watching over the crowd as we boarded. They're always a common sight around Gloucester Harbor. Since the weather was good, I headed to the upper deck, as did most of the other birders, and the boat was soon underway, heading out of the harbor. As you can see, the boat was fairly crowded, as whale watches tend to be. That, combined with the pitching and tossing of the boat, can make wildlife photography difficult, particularly video. The destination for whale watches out of Gloucester are the relatively shallow areas several miles offshore known as Jeffrey's Ledge and Stellwagen Bank. These undersea features cause an upwelling of cold, nutrient-rich water from the deeper ocean that serves as the bottom of the food chain for fish, whales, birds, and other marine life. I've made a very rough approximation of the track of the boat during the day here. I have to admit I wasn't paying much attention to our exact locations. Here's the long breakwater and lighthouse that marks the exit from Gloucester Harbor and the entrance into the Gulf of Maine. Fortunately, the ocean was pretty calm today, so there wasn't much change in the motion of the boat as we passed out of the protected harbor area. About 15 minutes after leaving the harbor, we started seeing the first offshore seabirds, which were Wilson's Storm-Petrels. These are tiny little seabirds about the size of an American robin that flit along the surface of the ocean. Here's an uncropped image of one flying along quite close to the boat. Because they're so small and dark colored, they're hard to spot and hard to keep track of once you do spot them. You can see how they tend to blend in with the ocean surface. And here are some cropped images that came out pretty well. This is a new one for the year list, obviously, and also a new species for the channel life list, which is the number in the lower right of the screen. This is probably the best shot that I got. You can see what a tiny bill this species has. The other seabird that we saw on this trip was Cory's shearwater. This is a much larger bird that has some superficial resemblance to a gull, but the way it flies is completely different, skimming along at high speed close to the ocean surface. Here are a couple shots of Cory's shearwater actually passing behind a small wave. In the past, identifying this species was pretty easy because it's the only shearwater in the Northeast with a yellow bill. That all changed last year when Scopely's shearwater was split off from Cory's shearwater. Scopely's shearwater is also found off the East Coast, although it's much less common than Cory's shearwater. The only reliable way to separate these species is to look at the underside of the wingtips. On Cory's shearwater, the dark tips extend farther up the wing, as shown here. On a Scopely's, the dark would extend only about half as far. This is something that's much easier to judge from a photo than by directly observing a flying bird. That was it for seabirds on this trip. I saw about a dozen Cory shearwaters, but we didn't see any of the other common shearwater species, such as great shearwater. We did have some other nice sightings, however. The main target of these trips, of course, is humpback whales, and we did see 2 of them. although they weren't that cooperative, just surfacing for a short time and then diving again. I'll show that short clip again. Another interesting sighting from this trip was a pod of the offshore subspecies of bottlenose dolphins. It seems likely that this will become a separate species from the more familiar inshore subspecies sometime in the next few years. They spent about 20 minutes frolicking next to the boat and were a lot of fun to watch. This dolphin sighting actually got the crew of the boat quite excited. Listen to what the captain, Jay Frontero, told us over the loudspeaker in this next clip.
So it's very, very rare for them to come in here. I've done over 7,000 whale watches. I figured it out earlier this year. I've done a little over 7,000 whale watches, and I've maybe seen these 5 or 6 times. So this is a very, very, very rare sight. So we did manage to get a few good looks at 2 individual humpback whales, but I want to hold these dolphins long enough for the other boat to get here to see them.
Wow, I think I'm most impressed by the fact that he's done 7,000 whale watches. So that wraps it up for the boat trip, but not for this video. Stick with me while I do some beach birding. So after the whale watch, I was a little disappointed that I only got 1 species of shearwater, because there are at least 4 species of shearwater that can be seen in the Massachusetts offshore area. But then I remembered that at Revere Beach, it is sometimes possible to see Manx shearwaters that are breeding in the water just off the shore here. So I'm at Revere Beach, and you can see there's kind of a protected harbor there, and sometimes the Manx shearwaters can be seen flying along the shore or floating out in the water, some distance from shore. I've been walking on the beach here for about an hour or so and have not seen any Manx shearwaters, so it looks like that's not going to work out today, but I'll keep looking a little bit longer. It's been nice though. I've gotten some nice flight shots of some common terns. And of course, the usual mix of great black-backed herring and ring-billed gulls were loafing on the beach. I also saw some semi-palmated sandpipers working the edge of the water and making frequent short flights up and down the beach. I got some flight shots of them too, since I had my shutter speed set to a fast 1/1600th of a second from filming the terns. Actually got a really nice look at a sanderling that was with some semi-palmated sandpipers. I noticed it was a little bit larger than the other ones, and then I noticed that it had kind of some red on the throat. So it's coming out of its breeding plumage, but it still has a little bit of that color that it has in the breeding plumage. In the winter you see them and they're just completely light and gray, no color at all. So very pretty bird to see with a little bit of red on the throat. No new ones here today yet, so keep looking a little bit longer and come back, of course, if I see any Manx shearwaters. Otherwise, I think I'll make another stop at another beach nearby and see if there's anything there. But it's an enjoyable morning out on the beach at least. Also at Revere Beach, there were a few families of common eider just offshore. They were about the only birds that I saw floating in the water. I also saw this osprey flying right in front of this apartment building. Definitely an urban birding location. Okay, so I've come down to Winthrop Beach, which is just a few miles south of Revere Beach. And there's a large least tern colony here, so I spent a little time photographing least terns, trying to get some flight shots. Did get a few decent flight shots, which I'll put up here. They're just basically flying from the nesting area 100 yards over the beach out into the water, catching some fish in the shallow water, and then just flying back to feed their young in the nest, and just doing that over and over again. So it's kind of fun to watch that. Here's another view of the sisters. At low tide, like it is now, you can walk right up to them. I've also seen some piping plovers here, a few more semi-palmated sandpipers. But probably the nicest sighting from here is a pair of American oyster catchers, which I saw. And you may remember that I actually picked up my American oyster catcher for the year here at Winthrop Beach a few months ago, but that was a distance shot out onto one of the breakwaters out there called the Sisters that you can see behind me. And this morning it was right here on the beach. So there was a pair of them. I think they're juveniles walking along, and they're making this loud whooping sound, which you can hear in the video. First I thought that sound was some kids playing, and then I realized that it was coinciding with the opening and closing of the beak of the bird. So it's kind of a funny sound that they're making. But actually one of the parents, I think, started calling the two youngsters here, and then they all flew away. And they've been flying around, but I haven't seen them as close up again. But this was nice footage to get. I also got some flight shots of the oyster catchers. With their large orange bills and the bold wing stripe, they're unmistakable even in flight. Least terns are everywhere on Winthrop Beach right now. These three were taking a little break from catching fish to splash around in the shallow water. Okay, so I think that's going to wrap up my birding for the morning here, and also going to wrap up this video. So this video is just going to be the whale watch, where we had the two nice pelagic species, and then my two quick visits to the beach this morning. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.